Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Kill, a Japanese movie from 1968 that stars Tatsuya Nakadai, one of the big-name actors of his generation. It was directed by Kihachi Okamoto, one of my favorite directors from that era. I reviewed Sword of Doom from 1966 on this channel, but I also have a top 10 list for Okamoto. I'll link that video in the description box below. Now in Kill, Tatsuya Nakadai stars as Genta, a former samurai who became disillusioned with the samurai lifestyle and left it behind to become a wandering yakuza gang member. He meets Hanjirō Tabata, played by Etsushi Takahashi, a farmer who wants to become a samurai to escape his powerless existence. Genta and Tabata wind up on opposite sides of clan intrigue when 7 members of a local clan assassinate their chancellor. Although the 7 rebelled with the support of their superior, he turns on them and sends members of the clan to kill them as outlaws. So Kill is one of those movies that is classified as a comedy on various websites, but it's not as in-your-face as you might expect from a typical comedy. You know, this film does play it straight, so to speak, with only a handful of outright comedic moments. So for example, early on there's a chicken walking around town, and our 2 starving protagonists are kind of eyeing it up for possible consumption. There's a fairly outrageous interaction between one of our protagonists and a woman near the midpoint, immediately followed by a very odd problem involving a pair of sandals. But I think the main reason why this is considered a comedy is that there is an undercurrent of parody that is infused within the many references to other Japanese samurai films. It almost feels like a satirical homage to Yojimbo at times, and that's just one example of the references that are showcased here. It's effectively executed, but the tone is balanced because it's serious enough to drive a legitimate story. And the story itself is entertaining. I mean, Nakadai is initially on the outside of this conflict early on, but he eventually gets roped into it after receiving some important information. And he plays at being non-threatening in this movie, but he might be more capable than he lets on. You know, this actor is a legend for a reason, and he's very convincing here, to no one's surprise. The antagonist in this movie is like my kind of bad guy. He pulls the strings and constantly schemes to get the job done without getting his own hands dirty. So he wants, like, plausible deniability just in case the crap hits the fan, meaning that he wants to have no consequences for all of his schemes and actions. And he does this by working like this morally gray area, kind of justifying his orders and using other people to do his dirty work and take the fall. There's a lot of information gathering at times in this. At one point, both of our leads decide to help one side of this conflict by deceiving the other, but things become more complicated. There are lots of side characters who intersect with the leads and vice versa, and that keeps things like fresh and interesting. There's not a ton of action in this, but there is enough to be satisfying. You know, the sword fights are quite good, which is no surprise when considering that Okamoto is directing this. We get a fight very early on, while a crazy dust storm is like blowing through the town. I love like the opening act in this. Like this dust storm that they created is just like all over the place. It's very like dirty and rustic, you know what I mean, of a setting. Choreography is old school for the fights, with an emphasis on scrappiness and realism. The confrontations are fairly short, but there are a handful of shootouts involving guns and arrows, as well as the sword fights. So I think this is just a very solid film from front to back. Kill is one of those movies that, I don't know, it seems to fly under the radar. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this when they're talking about like classic chambara flicks from the 60s. So if you're a fan of that type of swordplay genre, subgenre of film, I say check this one out if you haven't already. It's currently available streaming on YouTube and Amazon. It's also available on DVD. And as always, I'll see you next time.